Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look and installing the Redarc Liberty Brake Controller on a 2024 Subaru Outback. Our neighbor today has a Subaru Outback and they tow a trailer that does have brakes on it. And so to keep that trailer from pushing the Subaru around on the road, having a brake controller is going to be key. And when it comes to brake controllers, predominantly you probably think of something that mounts up underneath the dash and that you can hit your knees on. And in trucks, those work out fine because generally the dash is a little bit higher. But on something like this, there's not a whole lot of room and it's going to be getting in the way. And that's where the Redarc really comes into play. We were able to use a factory knockout plate to gain access to have a brake controller out of the way. It almost looks OEM mixed in here. So it's completely out of the way, yet you still get all the usability of a standard brake controller. I recommend this brake controller to a lot of my friends and family, especially with newer cars. There's just not as much space, and really for a really clean look, this is the best option. This is going to work well for 1 to 2 axles. I don't think you're going to be doing anything more than that with the Subaru, so this is definitely a great option. It lights up, and that's going to let you know where you set your gain to, and also as you brake, it's going to get brighter as those brakes start to come on a little bit harder. So without having a screen, you're probably wondering, well, how do I adjust that? Just at the push of a button allows you to adjust your gain as well as swap to your different trailer axles. So as you can see, the backlit portion will light up the clear section on our knob telling us where we are setting our gain. And that's going to be really nice. You just can kind of set that to 4 and your manual override is just going to be a push of a button. Now this is going to install just like any other brake controller. So in this case, there's no tow package, just plug a brake controller in. So it is going to require having 4-pole trailer wiring. If you don't already have that from the factory, I recommend the Concha kit. And then you're also going to need the ETBC7 kit. And that's going to give you duplex wiring as well as the 7-pole to plug into the back. You can get all your wires ran to circuit breakers, which are going to protect that 12-volt power and give not only the brake output, but also that 12-volt power to light up our Redarc. As far as installation goes, it's not terribly hard to do as far as getting the brake controller installed. That's pretty well plug and play, but there is going to be some splicing into your stoplight switch, and that's going to give you that brake output signal, so that way when you hit the brakes, it's going to send that signal to the brakes on the trailer. So there is going to be quite a bit of wiring that you're going to be tying into the battery as well as running it through a grommet on the firewall. So expect to spend a little bit of time and underneath the vehicle to run those power wires. I would maybe guess to be about 4 or 5 hours to do this, but overall the finished product is fantastic. That's the only thing you're going to see. Everything else is hidden, and again, to have a brake controller that's not in the way is going to be really great long term. So as far as that installation goes, I'll walk you through all those steps to make sure you get yours installed. So let's take a look at that. Now before we get to the brake controller installation, there is going to be some stuff required for that to work, and that's going to be a 7-pole that's going to mount to the back of the vehicle. And we're using kit ETBC7. That's going to give us the duplex wire to be able to run that, get our brake signal, as well as power to our brake controller. But to even get that kit going, you do need a 4-pole wiring. Now ours has the factory 4-pole already installed, and if yours doesn't, not to worry. The installation of the 4-pole is super easy on this vehicle. I recommend the Concha kit. It truly is just plug and play. You just pull up a few interior panels, plug that in. Just make sure you route down that 4-pole to where you are able to plug this into the ETBC 7-pole. So I'll grab our plug and we can start getting this run. And your ETBC7 is going to have your 7-pole end. It's also going to maintain that 4-pole end, which goes onto the bracket, which is really nice. You still get the usability of both styles of plugs. As this runs back, it does run to the 4-pole, and that's where it plugs into that factory one or the one that you'll be installing. So that makes this connection nice and easy. Now we do have some other wires here that we're going to be attaching, and that's where our duplex wiring comes into play. The factory 4-pole wiring does have a bracket here off the hitch, and that may be just with that factory hitch combo. So we're going to be able to utilize this bracket to mount up our 7-pole. But if you don't have that, not to worry. You do want it nice and secure. And one of the best ways to do that is pick up a no drill bracket. This simply goes up on the hitch, and then you're going to use a hose clamp to tie that in, and that's going to create the mounting points for your 7-pole. Using a vise, you can just kind of take a hammer and just lightly tap this, maybe a block of wood to keep it from scratching, but that should almost align the holes. You may need to enlarge them just slightly to be able to get that hardware to pass in, but that's going to put this at a pretty nice spot here for our 7-pole. I took the bracket to a vise and just straightened this out. Again, you can just use a rubber mallet on the ground and just kind of make sure it's nice and flat. I was able to reuse the same hardware from our 4-pole bracket. Otherwise, it is going to come with hardware for you to get that attached. And speaking of hardware getting things attached, we'll feed in our wires here. And we can mount up our 7-pole. So you can see the 4-pole just kind of slides over here, and that's where that bracket goes. But included in the kit is also going to be this hardware. So we'll take this off and get our hardware attached. You'll just pass the screw in, and then we're going to follow it up. We'll put a flat washer, the split washer, and then the nut on all 4. And then in order to tighten it down, a 3/8 socket is going to work on the nut, and then you're going to want a Phillips head screw or a screwdriver on the front here to hold that in place as you tighten it. So now we can start making our connections, and the first one we're going to do here is the 4-pole to 4-pole. And what you're going to want to make sure is that it doesn't come loose over time. Ours is kind of tucked up here a little bit, so we'll try to make this connection here. And what we can do just to make sure that it doesn't come loose over time is run a zip tie around this. So just kind of feed it through the wires. And then we'll put it down through this one. And it's just going to keep it all tight together. Really won't be able to loosen up. And something else too, just because it's living on the outside of the vehicle essentially, it's going to see road grime and water. So what I like to do is also take some electrical tape and wrap this up. With our 4-pole connected, before we get anything else as far as our ground mounted up, we're going to take our duplex wire and just peel back some of the sheathing here. Be careful not to cut into the sheathing on the wires, and we're going to strip this back. And then we're going to place these in the butt connectors. It's nice, it already comes with those on there, so we'll go black to black. And with all of your connections on a butt connector, once you crimp it down, I highly suggest just kind of giving it a quick tug to make sure that it's in place. It's not going to become loose over time. And then our white wire is going to go to our blue. And this is going to be the brake output signal, and our black is going to be for our power. And all of this is going to run up towards the front of the vehicle eventually. So you can just leave that drape there for now. Our yellow is going to be for surge brake lockout. So if you have a boat trailer with a surge coupler, that's how it initiates the brakes. When you back up, that can cause the brakes to go on. So having that reverse function lockout, make sure that you can do that. We're not going to be using it today. So we'll take our yellow wire, and I'm just going to kind of wrap this over and tape it up. You might want to also wrap up your connections on that duplex wire again, just to kind of make sure that water doesn't go in there and break down your connections. Now at this point it leaves our white ground wire to get in place, and there's really no factory grounds here, so what you can use is a self-tapping screw, which is included in the kit, to mount that up on some of the chassis metal. I recommend just kind of taking your wires and bundling them up to where they're kind of hidden, and that way this will kind of hold it up. We can also zip tie these up once we're done, but I think right about here will be a good spot. So I'll just take my self-tapping screw and drill this in. And just make sure it's tight enough to where that ring terminal doesn't spin around, but you don't need to go any tighter than that. That can actually strip out those threads you just made. Now we have all of our connections made here at the back. I need to take the duplex wire and run this up to the front in the battery where we're going to tie it into 12-volt power. So I'm going to get this all routed up, and I'll show you the path that I took. And I think on this one we're going to be hanging out here on the passenger side just to stay away from that exhaust. Now I've ran my duplex up to the engine bay, and I'll show you that path, but something that you might want to take in consideration is your black power wire. We're going to be making a few different jumpers to go to the battery and then eventually to the brake controller. So if you can find a path that uses the least amount of wire possible, that's going to be key. Unfortunately, I ran mine and I am going to be a little bit short. We have extra wire here. You can pick up extra wire. Just make sure you're matching the proper gauge and you should be okay. But if you're trying to get it all done with this kit, make sure you're taking a nice straight path up if you can. Now the path I took should follow the same as what you're going to need to do. Stay away from any suspension, hot or pinch points, anything that could potentially damage the wire. So I started off by just kind of looping this over. I zip tied it up with some, there's some factory wire loom that's from our 4-pole, and then made my way over to get away from the exhaust. From here, I poked it through a hole that's in this rear portion and just zip tied it up to these mounts that were already there from the factory, just to kind of hold that up, and then made my way over our cross member, making sure to stay away from the suspension arms. From here, I kind of went down by the gas tank, you can see it here, and then came out to the side. And this is where you can really get a decent amount of length ran, because if you take out the plastic push pins here, you can route the wire and this underbody panel as well. That's going to allow you to just kind of put that in place, pop it back in, and it should be good. Now, when you get up to the engine bay, you are going to need to route this up. So you can see here, I just kind of found some wire loom that I could tuck this in and then just pass this up through the engine bay, and we'll head back up there and I'll show you where I routed it from there. Now I continued to pull the wire up through the engine bay and then went along the firewall. There's this bracket here, I just kind of tucked it behind there, and then at this point, this is where I split the sheathing off the back, because our white wire is going to run into our brake output signal, and it's going to run in through this grommet. But let's continue on, because we also need to get our black wire ran to a circuit breaker before making its way to the battery. So this is the extra wire that I have, and this is what we might get short on, just because we're going to have to make some loops, and that's because we're going to be tying into our circuit breakers, and these just self-tap in. An easy spot that I found is right here on the shock tower. It's pretty accessible. It will clear the hood. Really anywhere that's accessible to get your ring terminals on here, and that it's not going to make any contact with metal because this will have power going through it. Now on the side, it's printed the amperage, so it comes with 3 different ones. We're going to be using the 40 amp. That's going to go to the 12 volt power that we have here and to the battery, and then we have a 30 amp. And this is what we're using for a Redarc brake controller. So you're going to want to check your brake controller instructions and see what the amperage rated is. Yours may be 20. If that's the case, just use the 20 amp circuit breaker. So the black wire from our duplex, we'll make our first connection on the 40 amp circuit breaker, and we're going to be using the ring terminal included in the kit to attach that, and it's going to go to the silver post, which is our auxiliary. Our copper posts are going to be the ones that run to the battery, so just make sure you don't get those swapped. So what I'll do is right about here, I think I can cut my wire. And then we'll just strip this back. And we'll get our ring terminal crimped down. And then we'll put this on the auxiliary. Now with the excess wire, we're going to make jumpers, and those are going to go from the battery post to the positive terminal on the battery, and we're not going to hook that up quite yet. We don't want power going through as we make connections. So I've gone ahead, I made 2 jumper wires here. So I'll get these on the battery terminals on our circuit breakers, and then eventually we'll get a larger ring terminal to put it to the battery. Now our last terminal here is the auxiliary on the 30 amp. This is going to be running to our brake controller, so it needs to run in through the grommet along with the white wire that we split at the duplex. And the best way to do that, there is an open slot on the side of this grommet here. And then I just kind of took a screwdriver, poked through there, and underneath there's a long rubber gasket that's kind of wrapped around it. If you just slightly cut away at it, make sure you don't damage any wires. You can take either the wire, or I have an airline tube here that I tape my wires to fish wire that through, but we do need to get that to pass into the driver's side compartment. So now at this point with my fish wire, I'm going to pull my wires through until I get the white and black wire passed in. Then we'll pull out the extra slack. Now with any extra wire, we're just going to cut this back so we don't have to deal with this. And we're going to grab our brake controller wire harness and start connecting that. Now, it really doesn't matter what brake controller you have. They're all going to hook up the same here with the ETBC7, and this one's no different. So we have a white wire, a red wire, a blue wire, and our black. Let's start with the black. This is going to be for our 12-volt power to the brake controller, so it powers up. And the butt connectors that are included, these are a heat shrink style. You can take a heat gun to them, but they're underneath the dash here, so it's not completely necessary. It's not going to be exposed to any elements. Now these wires are a little bit smaller gauge than obviously the duplex, so what I'm going to do is just strip this back a little bit further than what came from the factory, and that allows me to kind of twist the wires, bend them up, and it's going to give it a little bit more bite in the butt connector. And if you do have a bunch of excess wire, not to worry, all of this can be zip tied up in the dash. And in fact, you're probably better to have a little bit of extra. That way you can get everything mounted up. You can always zip tie up these extra wires. Now moving along to our next wire that we're going to connect. This is going to be the brake output signal. And this is going to send the signal obviously to our 7-pole. So our blue wire is going to attach to this white duplex. So we'll get our butt connector put on here. Now our white wire is going to be a ground, and we can generally find a factory ground underneath the dash, so we'll take our ring terminal and get that attached. Now the tricky one is going to be this red wire, and this goes to the stoplight switch on your brake, or essentially on this vehicle, a plunger that rests against the brake pedal. And that way when you press the brakes, that plunger opens up and that sends the taillight signal to the brake lights, illuminated the taillights, but also sending the signal that we're braking. So this is going to quick splice into that stoplight switch. And the stoplight switch, you're just going to follow up your brake pedal until you find that plunger. There's going to be a plug that we're going to separate, and we're going to be looking for the brown wire. Now the red wire quick splice into the brown wire, so on that switch you can unplug it to make it a little bit easier. Cut that sheathing back, the insulation around it, and separate that brown wire from the others. And that's where the quick splice, you'll see there's a section where a wire can pass all the way through. That's where our brown wire is going to live. Just make sure it's centered up in those openings. Our red wire then goes into the other section that's capped on one side. That metal tab is going to bite down into the wires, getting that metal-to-metal contact. So a pair of channel locks is a good way to crimp that down. And then once it's crimped and those wires are in place, you can put that little cap on the end, snap it all together, and your connection is made. In our ground wire, I just found a factory spot that had a nut. I took that off and then put our ring terminal in place, tightened it back down. And at this point, we have all of our connections under the dash made. We can go ahead and attach our 12-volt power to the battery. So, getting ready to attach our wires to the battery. I have a 13mm socket. We're going to just take one of the nuts off on the positive terminal. It really doesn't matter which one you hook up to. So with our ETBC7 all wired up, before we get everything tucked away and starting to mount our Redarc, we do want to test to make sure that it's working. So you can take this plug, pop this in. So with that popped in, we'll then take our Ethernet style cord, plug that in, and then this to the brake controller. And all we're going to be doing is looking for power. So go ahead, push the button. If it's lighting up, that's a really good sign that we have all of our power. So at this point, really it's going to go together just like this. It comes down to where do you want to mount your Redarc, and there's not a whole lot of options here. If you're not wanting to fabricate much, you can drill a small hole here and pop it in place. It might get in the way of your knees. You could put it on the other side. What we're going to be doing today is this knockout panel here. These buttons can pop out if you have any open ones. This is a great spot to do it. It is going to take a little bit of fabrication here. I had to kind of cut this out, but once it's installed, it's going to look nice and clean. So if you need to gain access to this, you can pop this out. There's just some tabs. You just kind of push these and we can get the whole thing to pop out. And this just snaps into place. You can see these kind of tabs here. If you push on the back, you can get it to pop out. And as far as if you're gonna go this route, the knockout plates, if you have an open one, you can just put a flathead screwdriver under these tabs and you'll be able to pop that out. And as far as fabricating, I just ended up cutting out, it's just kind of molded in there, this open section here, and our Redarc should fit in here. So I'm gonna get mine drilled out and get it all mocked up and see how it looks. I got this mounted up on our knockout plate, and it's just going to take a 12mm socket to get this tightened down on the collar. Just make sure you can push the button. It should have an audible click. If not, take off that ring and then re-tighten it down. I've also drilled out for our light here. Now, I did not use the trim ring. Generally, that's going to indicate where 12 o'clock position is and where the brake controller is going to be set. But I don't think, as far as clearance goes, I was going to be able to make that work. But I'm pretty happy with this. At this point, what we'll do is I'll pop this in place and turn the dial all the way to the left, or counterclockwise. And then where that light is, we're going to take the 0 and line it up with that. You should still be able to actuate that button, so it should have a click there. And then it does get a little bit tight on this side, so what I'm going to do is take this 90-degree bend here. You can see there's two different ends. This one's probably going to work a little bit better here. And then I'm going to pass this down. I can pop this back in place. And then just as we made our connection, as I showed you earlier, we're going to be doing the same thing, but we do need to get this mounted up on somewhere solid. You don't want to use wire loom because this can be mounted in any direction, but it is going to learn itself and calibrate once you start driving. And so it wants to find a fixed position. That way, when you're braking, it's going to apply those brakes. So you can use zip ties, you can use self-tapping screws, but normally just zip ties around something solid on the frame is going to be a good option. So I'll get this all plugged up, zip tied, and then I'll show you how it looks. Now, as far as mounting up the main unit of the Redarc, it normally is fairly easy to find a spot to zip tie that up. That's not the case here. So what I ended up doing was self-tapping a screw into the same bracket that we put our ground screw on, and that's going to make it nice and solid. And then from there, I zip tied up our wires, and that Ethernet cable that goes to the brake controller button, I kind of tucked that underneath the carpet and wrapped that, making sure that I'm not going to get in the way of the hood latch release. Overall, just make sure that all your wires are out of the way from anything that's going to be moving as far as your pedals go. Now, also before hitting the road, it is a good time to check to make sure that all your light functions work. So we'll start off with our running lights. Next, we'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, our brakes, and we have a tester to see the brake output, so I'll push that, make sure we're getting that signal. Now, once you get everything buttoned back up, you can get all your panels put back in place. Make sure you push the button one more time to make sure it's lighting up. And as far as calibration goes, normal driving is going to calibrate it. If you're hooking up to a trailer immediately after your installation, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing at least, I would say, 10 to 15 stops from 20 miles per hour, and that's going to get it to calibrate. But other than that, normal driving will make it ready to go as soon as you plug in your trailer for the next time. And that was a look and installation of the Redarc Liberty Brake Controller on a 2024 Subaru Outback.